Meeting of the Parish Council. Ms. Ford, let's see, the first thing we need to do is an invocation. Mr. Falconer, I believe you're going to lead us with that?
Most holy and glorious Lord God, the great architect of the universe, the giver of all good gifts and graces, you have promised that where two or more are gathered in your name, you will be in their midst and bless them. In your name we have assembled, and in your name we desire to proceed in all our doings. Strengthen us, merciful Father, to put our faith into action. Grant that the work of our parish government may give tangible expression to your love through the work of building our community. Accept our humble thanks for the many mercies and blessings which your bounty has conferred upon us. Pardon whatever you have seen amiss in us, and continue to us your protection and your blessing. Grant that the world may be better and happier for our having lived in it, and that we may ever practice that charity which is the bond of peace and the perfection of every virtue. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Stefanczyk, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Ford, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Dean? Here. Mr. Sharp? Here. Mr. Thompson? Here. Mr. Falconer? Here. Mr. Tanner? Here. Mr. Groby? Here. Mr. Gould?
Here.
Mr. Canulet? Mr. Baldessario? Ms. O'Brien? Here. Mr. Stefanczyk? Here. Mr. Bender? Here. Mr. Artigue? Mr. Smith? Here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, first item on the presentations, a presentation of Parkway Pipeline Project by Alan Four with Kinder Morgan, excuse me. Ms. Brister, I believe you sponsored this?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And thank you very much for being here and speaking with us and telling us a little bit about what you're planning to do.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you tonight about our pipeline project that we have proposed that will impact St. Tammany Parish, we think, in a positive way, and will provide a new source of energy infrastructure for not only the state of Louisiana, but for the United States. I've got a PowerPoint presentation I'll run through. I know you're limited on time, so I'll move quickly through the slides. A little bit about Kinder Morgan and our company. We are a pipeline company. We have 38,000 miles of pipeline across the United States that we own, operate, or have an interest in. I showed our project map there. You can see by the different colors, that's the type of product we transport, anything from crude to ethanol, natural gas, CO2. We've invested a lot in energy infrastructure over the last several years. We also have a significant presence in the state of Louisiana, 8,000 employees across the country. You can see by some of these major infrastructure projects, just in 2011, about $1.9 billion in new infrastructure. You can see in Louisiana, we had about $1 billion acquisition with Kinderhawk Field Service, that's natural gas collection in the Haynesville Shale. In Louisiana, currently about 1,200 miles of pipeline, over $3 billion of investment in new pipeline infrastructure over the last few years. The purple line at the top, the purple line at the bottom are two new major pipelines we constructed within the last 5 years in the state of Louisiana. I think that's important, excuse me, for you to know, because we're familiar with the pipeline construction, the regulatory agencies, and the uniqueness that Louisiana has for pipeline construction. A list of the different assets we currently have in the state of Louisiana as well, about 500 employees, about a $30 million payroll. So, talking specifically about our proposed pipeline called Parkway Pipeline. This is our proposed project route beginning in Norco, Louisiana, terminating in Collins, Mississippi. It's 141 miles of 16-inch pipeline. The project will be transporting gasoline and diesel from Norco, from the Valero facility at Norco to Collins, which is a major energy hub for the country. The purpose of this project is to provide additional energy resources for the southeastern United States. It will ultimately connect with another pipeline system that we have in Collins, Mississippi to provide that. So gasoline and diesel fuel will be the product in the pipeline. Our schedule of our pipeline is ongoing, continuing. We've been at this for some time. This is actually a project that started in different concepts about 10 years ago, and we're finally moving forward with the partner Valero, our 50% partner on this project, to construction. We hope to begin construction. This is all pending the permits and approvals by the summer of 2012 with an in-service date approximately a year later. So specific to St. Tammany Parish, I have a few slides that show our pipeline route as it exits Lake Pontchartrain into Fontainebleau State Park and into St. Tammany Parish. You can see as we move through the parish, following the corridor here, here, and here, and then exiting the parish into Washington Parish and then eventually into Mississippi. So about 39 miles of pipe in St. Tammany Parish, 77 centerline tracks, $2 million we estimate in tax revenue once we're in service that we distribute to the taxing bodies in the parish districts that are represented on this pipeline project, and we do have an office and have had an office for some time in Mandeville. 16 roads, major road crossings listed here, major water crossings listed here. And I will say on the road crossings, consultations will commence with the parish regarding those road crossings, and will follow your protocols and regulations pursuant to those road crossings. So you'll be hearing from us shortly in that regard and how we propose to cross your roads. This is a heavily regulated industry, and Parkway Pipeline is subject to those regulations, starting with federal oversight at the Army Corps of Engineers, state oversight with the Louisiana Department of Natural Resources. Those are the lead state agencies, and a number of other state agencies, including the Office of State Lands. Cultural, recreation, and tourism is part of our entry into Fontainebleau State Park. So all of these permits are in process in different stages that we will need to secure before we construct this pipeline. Any pipeline construction is proposed by the pipeline company, in this case Parkway Pipeline, and approved by these various agencies. They will tell us how we can construct and when we can construct. So the permitting plan, we've been underway for some time doing significant surveys, which are going out to the actual route of the pipeline, proposed pipeline, and making sure it's constructible, working with landowners to secure a survey permission, making sure we avoid any of these endangered or threatened species like the brown pelican, gopher tortoise, bald eagle, sturgeon, and the manatee. Those are all species we will be avoiding on this project. Right-of-way, to construct a pipeline, I've got a little schematic there of what it looks like. Basically, we're going to clear a right-of-way and then bring the pipe in. I got some pictures I'll show you in a minute of that, but specifically on right-of-way, we anticipate 2 construction spreads, total centerline tracks, 478. A few less landowners than that because some landowners own multiple tracks. The easement that we'll ask for is 75 feet temporary, 40 feet permanent, and the landowners will be paid for access to their property during construction, and the depth of cover is 4 feet. The miles of pipe in the different parishes will pass through in Louisiana, and the roads and water bodies that we will cross. So pipelines like this take many years to plan and propose and to get the approvals of the appropriate regulatory agencies. Some of the issues that are addressed in advance. Horizontal directional drills will be used to cross all major water bodies on this project, which lessens the impact to those environmentally and culturally sensitive areas. Our Lake Pontchartrain crossing, I've got a few slides that will show about that, but to give you an example of what our route will be as we enter into Lake Pontchartrain here and exit Lake Pontchartrain here. It's between the cabins on the lake, and this is a pipeline corridor. This is where other pipelines currently exist. So through the lake and in and out, we're following existing pipeline designated corridor by the state of Louisiana. And exiting here in that clearly identified area between the cabins. We'll be constructing the pipeline in Lake Pontchartrain using a jetting method. We'll weld the pipe on the barges, drop it into the lake. It will be jetted with water, and the sediment at the bottom of the lake will come in behind it. This is very, very similar to the previous pipeline that was laid through. We'll follow that same very familiar method with a contractor that's very familiar with the process. Safety is the #1 issue on all pipeline construction before, during, and in service. and a number of the methods and techniques that we use to make sure that these pipelines are constructed to meet or exceed all federal, state, and local regulations. I mentioned before a little bit about the construction process, from the clearing and grading of the right-of-way, stringing the pipe, bending the pipe on site as needed, welding, lowering in, backfilling, and restoration. So this whole process is much like an assembly line, as you can see here, kind of like an assembly line in reverse. But an assembly line and a very efficient process. Our major challenge is generally weather. And I know it never rains in Louisiana, so we should have no problem. A lot of benefits come along with pipeline construction that you will see. I know a number of our team here in Mandeville are from out of town and staying in your hotels and utilizing your restaurants, and that's only going to increase. 1,200 temporary construction jobs will be part of this process. We don't have a contractor selected yet, but I know that Mandeville will probably be a center for a lot of those construction workers as we go through the process. Tax revenue that's estimated, you can see the various parishes. St. Tammany is larger because you have more miles of pipe, and that will be based upon the local taxing distribution of how your taxing dollars are distributed. We know that it'll be around $2 million. So we've been briefing many folks on this project for some time. Of course, the parish president and her predecessor, Councilman O'Brien, Councilman Groby, and others. We've had separate briefings, but from Governor Jindal to the parishes and basically everyone in between. We've tried to be very transparent about this project, tell you what we're doing, how we're doing it, when we're going to do it. The governor of Mississippi was a recent meeting. Lots of meetings with the public, and we encourage any groups, organizations that you know of that you recommend that we meet with. We'd be happy to meet with those folks, Rotary clubs, chambers, and others would be happy to do that. One of the hallmarks of Kinder Morgan, we've been at this business a long time and constructed a lot of pipe in a lot of areas, and we know that public communication and transparency are critical. So we want to be responsive to you and to your constituents. We have a website, parkwaypipeline.com. I'm going through this at a rapid pace to meet your time requirements. Please visit our website, parkwaypipeline.com. We also have a local phone number. That is local. That's a toll-free number, but that's our office over on Causeway Boulevard. And just in conclusion, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, we build pipelines for a purpose. It's because customers need to get their product to market, and it gets to market because there's a need for it at the end user. So Valero is our partner on this project. They need to get product to market. The southeastern United States needs additional assurances of energy supply, including military bases that will utilize some of the product off of this pipeline. So it's really ultimately going to help secure the domestic energy security and energy infrastructure of the United States. And this pipeline will be a small part towards continuing to hopefully lead us to energy independence. One thing I do want to note, too, is we have a foundation that you can read about on our website, kindermorgan.com/community. But the schools that are in St. Tammany Parish, this is where we have assets. So we have an office here, and we will have a significant asset in about 2 years, but you're eligible for your schools to apply for grants from our foundation. We like to be a good corporate citizen, and please visit our website, and I encourage you to apply to the Kinder Morgan Foundation. And with that, happy to answer any questions if that's appropriate.
Any questions from the council? Ms. Brisk, do you have anything further to add?
No questions, but thank you for a hurried explanation. And we did take a lot more time when you came in to go through it, and I appreciate you doing that. And again, he did mention that he would meet with any groups, and we hope that people will let us know which groups they represent and would like for you to be there.
Happy to do it. Happy to brief any of the members of the council individually. And again, we will be back in a formal manner to talk to parish staff about road crossings and specific impacts in the community. But we look forward to being a part of St. Tammany Parish for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, next item for presentations is a presentation to introduce International Paper Company. Mrs. Brister.
Yes, International Paper Company is the new owner of the paper mill just north of us, and which affects us, obviously. So they have agreed to come and tell us a little bit about their plans and what they see in our area.
Sure.
Thank
Be
you.
glad to. First of all, thank you, Madam President. Thanks, Council, for having us here. And by the way of introductions, I'll introduce myself and then one of the important members of my team. My name is Todd Crutcher. I'm the mill manager at the International Paper Mill in Bogalusa. Now, that may seem somewhat strange, as you've probably known it as Temple Inland, maybe Gaylord, but we're the new owners and pleased to be there. International Paper acquired the Temple Inland Company and closed that deal in February for just over $4.5 billion, so it's an important investment for us. For myself, I'm a native Mississippian. I grew up in the Delta, northern Delta of Mississippi. I went to school at Ole Miss, and there are not a lot of those folks
We'll
around.
forgive
but,
you for that.
It's one thing is, Chairman, is we don't really provide a whole lot of competition in most any sport, so it's not really. Is this a colleague? Outstanding.
Take him with you. Take him with you.
Things can only get better from here. I'm a trained engineer. I graduated as a mechanical engineer. I've been working with International Paper now for 31 years. I seem somewhat a transient. I've worked in 7 of the paper mills that International Paper has in North America. I've managed 4 of those. Bogalusa is my 5th. As a new member to the community and a new member to the mill, my biggest challenge right now is just to figure out how to get to work, who are the people that work with me, and then one of the key things is to understand our commitments that we have as a new owner of the Bogalusa Mill. We know of the difficulties that Bogalusa had last year. We know it very well. We know of our responsibilities toward making that right. We met with the president and talked to her a bit about what our plans were, and one of the first things that I wanted to make sure that she understood is that we stood behind the commitments that were made and to make the things that we knew that needed to be dealt with will be dealt with. Now, I'll introduce one of the key members of our staff is Dr. Mike Steltenkamp. Mike is an old friend of mine. He and I met in Pensacola, Florida. He's a very accomplished scientist and manager and a very specialized scientist in the area of wastewater treatment, and something that we're looking forward to his expertise weighing in on that. So I'll let him in a moment introduce himself and talk a little bit about Mike. But let me talk a little bit about International Paper. Sometimes we miss the point that we think you guys know all about us, but it's a big company, $25 billion in annual sales. We're part of a 17 mill system in North America that makes the kind of paper that we make in Bogalusa, paper that's used for boxes, cardboard boxes. Bogalusa is an important part of that. It's been an important part of the Bogalusa community for a long time, and we intend it to be that same thing under the new owners. So for now, what I will commit to the council and as a neighbor, northern neighbor there in Washington Parish, is that we will be about the business of making things as best we know to make them, especially as it relates to the environment and especially as it relates to our communication there with the Pearl River. And welcome the chance to talk to anybody about any of the specifics that would be necessary, given just an invitation. We have an open door. I'm a very easy person to get in touch with. We met with the president. She asked me for a business card. I said, I've only been there a month, and I don't have a business card yet, but that's soon to be remedied. I understand that they're on their way, and I'll be glad to talk with you guys, either by phone or in person. I can make myself available for most any place that you guys might need for me to be. But enough about me. I'll introduce Mike Steltenkamp and let him have a moment, if that would be all right, to introduce himself and get more familiar with, you guys get more familiar with him. So, Mike.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity to introduce myself. My name, again, is Mike Steltenkamp, and I'm the new Environmental Health and Safety Manager at the Bogalusa Mill. A little bit about my background. I've been, like Todd, over 30 years of experience in the pulp and paper industry. Most of my career has been in the area of technology development, research and development, focusing on improvements to our manufacturing processes as well as improved environmental technologies. Over the past 10 years, I've been the Environmental Health and Safety Manager of our facility in Pensacola, Florida, and had the opportunity to head up a major project that provided significant environmental benefits in that area to the local waterways. And one of the pleasures I had in doing that job was the engagement with the community and and other major stakeholders to that mill, including the regulatory community and the political community as well. So I'm looking forward to this opportunity at Bogalusa to make a change, to make a difference, to improve our operations, to work with a good management team, and also to engage the community, work with the community, as well as all of the other stakeholders that have a vested interest in the success of the Bogalusa mill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Well, we look forward to you being a good neighbor and us being a good neighbor as well. Okay, next item will be, let's see, Corridor Management Plan for the Heritage Corridors 2012 Louisiana Bicentennial Themed Trails Project and the 2013 Rucoquet Bicentennial, Mr. Tom Akelin of Lacone Heritage Center. Yes, sir.
Thank you all. I brought you some gifts, but I didn't gift wrap them. But these are part of the projects that we're doing called 9/11 Living Memorial. Back 2 years ago, we dedicated on 9/11 the VFW Hall and also the live oaks on the Lacombe Ridge as part of the 9/11 Living Project. This is a national project that is recognized nationally in magazines. It was written up in the Rails to Trails, which mentions, of course, the Tammany Trace in their official landmarks Living Memorials booklet. They mention us and show a picture of the Tammany Trace as part of the Living Memorial Project in the back, and also the DVD for you all. So I'm going to leave these with you so that you can have them distributed. One of the things that I'd like to mention is that several of the projects that we have engaged in have already come to pass. Like the 9/11, we're getting started with that. Needs a lot of coordination, of course, but the birding trail, the Louisiana, or rather America's Wetlands Birding Trail now, is featured. We made 12 inputs to it that were taken up by the Louisiana Office of Tourism. And the Great Louisiana Bird Festival is coming up, I think, next week in the North Lake Nature Park. So it's something that we need. They're giving out, we have calendars, but our local tourism department doesn't have them. And yet it's part of an international trail that goes all the way from the Yucatan Peninsula to the Florida Keys through the northern Gulf of Mexico. I got a grant about 3 years ago now to develop these corridor management plan. And part of our ability or the method that we're using to develop this plan is called the Corridors and Trails Rural Tourism Economic Development Initiative. A lot of words which say a lot of things, but in Lacombe and Mandeville, that corridor there, we are trying to designate, well, it has been designated as a cultural district, a heritage corridor and themed trails. We have about, I'd say, a dozen of them now under consideration, 2 of which will pass along Highway 190 and the Tammany Trace. This is the Choctaw Nature Trail and the America's Wetlands Birding Trail and the North American Bluebird Trail, which is linking Lacombe, Louisiana with Lacombe, Alberta, which is our twin city, which we twinned with back in during Franco-Fête. The other 2 are aquatic trails, La Tour de Iberville. In March 28, 1699, Iberville camped out at the mouth of Bayou Lacombe on Goose Point. He was our first European, Canadian tourist, and we celebrated with a champagne toast to him back, I think it was last Thursday, March 28th of 2012. So this is the bicentennial of statehood, and the other trail will be a William Bartram Wilderness Adventure and Resource Restoration Trail, because a lot of people think, well, who was William Bartram? I didn't know who he was either until I started doing research. And he was America's first scientist. He was a friend of George Washington, Ben Franklin, and he traveled along through the Lakes Pontchartrain and Maurepas to the Mississippi River. He stayed at the mouth of the Pearl River for about 6 weeks. I believe he was a spy for the Patriots, really, because he came through in 1775, and he was doing a lot of things other than looking at flowers. But he was a botanist, he was a scientist, he was a keen observer. He traveled through 8 states, including Louisiana, all of which have existing Bartram trails that are making money and profiting off of them. And so a couple of years ago, I set up the Louisiana Bartram Trail. So we have a lot of opportunity for unity in our community, and we appreciate all the help that you all have given to our new councilman. He's got a lot of ideas, he's got a lot of spark about him, and we're going to utilize him as well as we can, and we appreciate all the help that you all will be giving him. He speaks highly of you, believe me. And also, since we don't seem to trust the mails, I brought this to you personally. Thank you. We'll know, I know you got it. Thank you. So, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Eklund.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate
See
it.
y'all.
Take care. Jake, you have anything to say? Turn your mic on. Turn your mic on.
Tom has been there long and hard, pushing for this trail to come through Lacombe. It's there. We really would like to get the rest of the world to come to Lacombe and all of St. Tammany to see this trail. This is outstanding, and this program is, if it's done right, it's just going to shine Lacombe and all of St. Tammany like never before. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to consent calendar.
Mr.
Any-
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before you go on to the consent calendar, let me just take a moment and warn you guys to be on your best behavior, because I got 2 of my students back in the back over there, Kimberly Kuzan and Anna Brady. They're here observing and getting extra credit for their class at Southeastern, so I just wanted to welcome
Good for them. Okay, consent calendar. Any items not pulled from the consent calendar are automatically approved in whole by 1 vote. Items pulled from the consent calendar are discussed and voted upon individually. Let's see, I have a list of items that need to be pulled under ordinances for introduction. Item number 7, 11, 12, and 15. Under resolutions, I have 1, 2, 7, and 10. Does any, Mr. Dean, do you have anything? Mr. Sharp? Mr. Thompson? Mr. Falconer? No? Mr. Groby? Mr. Belisario? Yeah, that's under ordinances. We got that. Okay, Mrs. O'Brien? Mr. Stefancic? Mr. Bender? Mr. Artigue? Mr. Smith? Okay, we'll take a motion to approve the consent calendar. And second by Mr. Artigue. Vote with your lights on the consent calendar, please.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Okay, first item that was pulled under ordinances, ordinance calendar number 4752, ordinance to amend the Parish Unified Development Code regarding landscape and tree preservation. Mr. Belisario, I believe you,
Yes, this item didn't come up under discussion on the agenda review last week. I just wanted some information from Sydney. What is the intent of these changes?
If you will look on page 2 of the attachment. It's on, yeah, if you look on page 2 of the attachment, number 5, What we're looking, now that we have a landscape architect on board qualified to grade the quality of trees, very often when we go to look at a site, we'll see trees that while they might be a desirable species, such as a live oak or a cypress, because of the location, because of the way developed, they're very poor quality and has very little real value to it. So we're looking at in our tree preservation ordinance, being able to score so that we require the 100% replacement inch for inch for healthy oak trees or cypress trees, as opposed to a top dead, grade D tree that technically, under now, you may have a 36-inch dead tree that you'd have to replace. You would not have any replacement requirements on that tree. And so it just lets us refine our regulations and our ability to preserve and replace the high-quality trees.
Okay. Then what I'm interpreting then is if you're looking at 5A with its healthy 100% replacement, if there is a 36-inch width tree, they would have to come in and put one in?
If there's a 36-inch tree, you'd have to replace 36 inches worth of oak trees. Generally, we're looking at 4 to 6 inch trees. So we're looking at substantial trees. We're not looking at 1.5 inch caliper.
Okay.
We actually have a case right now we're working where it's going to be all 4-inch trees.
Okay, so you're not looking at, the typical ones that are 1 or 2 inch caliber,
Yeah.
and they're 15 foot tall, and in less than a year they die.
Correct, and actually, most of the ones that we get in now, the requirements for Class A trees, I believe, are 2 inch, 2.5 inch. And as we've brought more expertise on board with our landscape architect, it's much easier to enforce that type of thing, where we're a lot more proactive in our inspections and upgrading and verifying the quality of the trees.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, Gene, you want to move on that?
I'll make a motion to move on the ordinance 4752.
To introduce, second by Mr. Artigue, and that's all we need to do there. Next item is ordinance calendar number 4756. This is number 11. Ordinance to revoke a portion of 19th Avenue and East Street, rights-of-way located west of Highway 190, south of Covington. This was pulled because the ward and district numbers are incorrect. It should be amended to Ward 3, District 5. Need a motion on that. Mr. Dean, second by Mr. Thompson, and I believe that's all, that's the amendment. We need to vote on the amendment.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, motion to introduce Mr. Dean, second by Mr. Thompson. That's all we need to do there. Next item is number 12, ordinance calendar number 4757, ordinance to amend council series number 10-2406 to the 2011-2015 capital improvement budget and program, fixed assets, and grant awards. Mr. Belisario, I believe
Yes.
you wanted this pulled.
Yes. I want to make an amendment to this. During the year-end process, based on what the ordinance was, we have found additional encumbered expenses of $156,426 to show the amounts of money. So we have to raise it up from $28,783,973 to $28,943,999.
That's correct. All right, so we have a motion to amend, seconded by Mr. Stefanczyk. Vote with your lights on the amendment, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, I need a motion to introduce. So, seconded by Mr. Artigue. That's all we need to do with that. Now, number 15, ordinance calendar number 4760, ordinance to amend 2012 operating budget amendment number 2. Mr. Belisario, I believe this is you.
Okay.
You
Yes,
too.
it is. It's the same situation as ordinance 4757. Some late bills came through at the end of February for the amount of $2,550 that we have to add to amendment number, excuse me, to amendment number 2 of the 2012 operating budget.
All right, so I have a motion to amend. I need a second. Mr. Artigue. Ms. Bristow, I believe you had something you wanted to talk about.
When you finish with this one, I just want to add one.
With the amendment?
Yes,
Okay,
when
vote
you
on the
finish.
amendment then, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ms. Bristow.
Okay, while we are on budgetary matters, I did want to announce that we just received from Standard & Poor's an upgrade for the limited tax revenue bonds, which is the libraries, to AA+ stable. That they maintain the limited tax revenue bonds, the Corona bonds, at AA stable. AA+ is the second highest rating Standard & Poor's assigns. The next highest rating would be AAA. Caddo Parish is the only other public body in Louisiana with a AA+ rating. So
That's
I just wanted
fantastic.
to announce that, and thank you all for helping us get to where we are. Thank you very much, girls.
I need a motion to introduce. Second by Mr. Bender, and that's all we need to do with that item. All right, moving on to resolutions. First one is going to be resolution number 1. Resolution, Council Series Number C, 3328, a resolution to not concur with the City of Slidell annexation and zoning of .586 acre. This is in Ward 9, District 11. Mr. Stefanczyk?
Mr. Chairman, before I'm going to move to concur, and then I want to make a statement.
Yes, sir. Motion to concur, second by Mr. Bender. Okay, Mr. Stefanczyk?
Yes, this is another, and then I met with Tara Hunter from the city of Slidell. I happened to see her at RPC last month, and she asked me why we had tabled this, and I said because it came on our agenda and I didn't know anything about it. And it, you know, it got to our office late, it got put on the agenda, and so I didn't know anything about it. And she said, okay, we will make sure that everybody in the future gets notified. We do have a process that they are supposed to not only notify the administration, the parish council office, but they are also supposed to send a certified letter to each of one of the councilmen in their district when they do that. I have yet to receive that letter today, even after a month ago I was told that I would be notified in receiving it. Now, I went and looked at the property, and I don't have a problem with where it is. It's along Highway 190 between two buildings that are already in the city of Slidell, and this small building needs sewage and water, and that's what they're going to be providing. But I just want to reiterate from our office, Mike or somebody needs to get with them, and other councilmen need to be made aware when these things are coming up in their district, so we don't have to table it, so we get an understanding of what it is, and we can check it out ahead of time. Had I known it prior to the last meeting, I'd have been able to go by the site and see it, but, and no, I would have been able to go ahead and concur at that time because I knew where it was, but particularly when you get a property description and you don't know where it is until you actually see the drawing, then you can go find out what's happening with it. So I would think that we should send a note to the city of Slidell to tell them to start adhering to the agreement that we have, which is the sales tax agreement, and would appreciate that coming from our office. Thank you. With that, I can move to concur, so.
Vote with your lights, please.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, could I make a comment?
Go ahead. Go ahead. I didn't see your light on.
No, that's okay, thank you. I just want to support what Councilman Stefanczyk said. We had a similar issue previously in the last 6 months, I think in Council District 13. And about 4 years ago, I was getting phone calls, you know, on a Thursday late. Hey, Jerry, can you help us with this? Set it up to where everything that Steve's talking about was done. And just so you'll know, I passed this on about a month ago. It needs to be followed. So I think a letter from the council office would be good. We can be good neighbors, but they need to inform the administration, the council, so that council members can get out there, look at the property and so forth, okay? And I will pass it on again myself. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, it's interesting, though. The town of Abita had an annexation that they did. We passed it last month. They talked to me 3 months in advance. 3 months in advance. I mean, and every month they would update me on where they were. It sat on the agenda for a while, And, I mean, it was just so easy. I don't get it with the city of Slidell.
Well, and let me be clear. The problem went away for a good 4-year period, okay? But in fairness, there's been some changes in the planning department, quite a few in the last 2 or 3 years. So I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, but at this point, I want to make it clear that on the record, they need to do, as you just mentioned, which is what Abita did. And that way, we don't run into tabling, we can vote yay or nay.
Yeah, well, Jerry, you know, common sense tells you that somebody's got to carry their water here, you know?
Mr. Chairman, I completely agree, and that's why I'm supporting Mr. Stefansik's statement.
Mr. Smith?
Carrying the water, I think, is incumbent upon all of the Eastern End delegation that sits at this podium. And there has been some discussion with the city of Slidell and that council about us putting together a comprehensive process where we can have these kind of discussions. And I think that we all need to make sure that this particular matter is presented at that time collectively. But it may be time to just stop talking about this and maybe take some stiffer action. Mr. Stefansic, I know you want to concur with this, but maybe we need to just maybe not concur, and maybe that might get the message across.
I did that about 4 years ago, and
I was involved in
and it was not a good situation that we got into. Okay, I would prefer to keep it above board and keep everything. We've been working a long time to get a good rapport with the city of Slidell, and I just don't want to do something from a standpoint of slamming the door in their face and then starting over again. I'd rather work with them to get to where we are and make certain that we just follow the rules that we have in place. But I did that 4 years ago, and it came back as a very negative, and then we were starting to build trust over again, and I don't think we want to go through all that again. They've had some changes in the administration, and I understand that, and people have been changed there, so give them time to get up to speed, but we just need to reiterate the process. That's what I wanted to do.
Okay, Ms. Brister?
And that's it, I don't want to go too long.
Mrs. Brister, and then I'm going to call a vote.
That's fine. I just wanted to say, you know, coming from the administration, sometimes things do slip by. But I think one thing we should do, I was at the Slidell council meeting last week. At the next council meeting, we go and we just talk to them and say, we have this little disconnect. If we get it a little sooner, it'll make our jobs easier. I think that's a friendlier way of doing it, and do it in person, so everybody, and Tara is there at all those meetings. So that might make a point instead of our sending things back and forth.
Sure. Okay, vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, next item is Resolution Council Series Number 3348, resolution approving the issuance of not exceeding $5,600,000 of general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2012 of Parish Recreation District 1. Yes, sir. Do we have a bond counsel here? Mr. Schluter.
I'm not from Ole Miss. Though I do have a partner that is from Ole Miss. This is a request from Recreation District Number 1, Pelican Park, to refinance their 2003 general obligation bonds. They have an RFP out to banks now. They're receiving proposals at the end of the month. They anticipate reducing the interest rate, no debt extension. Based upon current rates, the savings to taxpayers would be about $250,000. Since this is a refinancing of a general obligation bond issue, all of the savings go to taxpayers. None of it goes to the district.
Super. Okay, so we need a motion to adopt. Mr. Falconer, second by Mr. Tanner. Vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, next item is number 7, Resolution Council Series Number C, 3353, resolution to concur, not concur with the City of Mandeville annexation and rezoning of 1.339 acres. This is in Ward 1, District 10. Mrs. O'Brien.
Okay, I'll move to concur.
Okay, move, second by Mr. Belisario. Vote with your lights on the concurrence.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, item number 10, Resolution CS number C 3356, resolution to amend Ordinance Council Series number 11 2638, the 2012-2016 capital improvement budget and program fixed assets and grants awards to make changes to the capital improvements list, Fund 300. I'd like to ask someone to move the table list, and second by Mr. Stefanczyk. I'm going to get with, this is actually going to be something in my district, and I would like to get with engineering and public works to have a discussion about what we're doing. Nobody said anything to me.
Oh, it was just, it's a Public Works, you know, Alamosa Park there, the road is just torn up. We were
Right,
realizing
but I'd like to have a discussion with them about what we're going to do. So I'd like it to be tabled until the next meeting, and then we move on.
It was funded out of our budget.
I
not yours.
understand,
Okay,
I
all
understand.
right.
So I have a motion and a second. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, that completes the consent calendar. Let's move on to appeals. First appeal, I believe, is going to be withdrawn, but I'll have to read it into the record. Applicant Sam and Louise Woods appealing the zoning commission denial on March 6, 2012, to rezone 49,210 square feet located on the southeast corner of Highway 190 and Oak Lawn Drive from NC1 to HC2, Ward 7, District 7. Mr. Grovey?
I'd like to move that we concur with the zoning denial.
Okay, and you received a letter from the...
Yes, I have.
From the appellant that withdrew their appeal,
Correct.
correct? So I have a motion and a second by Mr. Thompson. Let's vote on with your lights on the concur.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, oh, that's right, you need to move on the resolution after we get the vote.
I'd like to move on the motion that we pull it.
Move on the resolution.
Mhm.
Second by Mr. Thompson. All right, vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, I'm going to skip to number 3, because I have received a letter to table this item. The appeal is by Mr. Maurice Lagarde, appealing the zoning commission approval on March 6, 2012, to rezone 4.1 acres located north of DeFries Road, east of Highway 25 from A1 to A2. This is in Ward 2, District 3. Mr. Thompson? And second by Mr. Dean. All right, vote with your lights on the table, please. I'm sorry, I neglected to ask if anyone was here with regards to that appeal.
We are, yes, but we have no opposition to the table, that's fine.
Okay, I apologize to you. It just skipped my mind. Thank you, ma'am.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, going back to number 2, applicant William Michael Sims appealing the zoning commission denial on March 6, 2012, to rezone 1 acre located on the southwest corner of Carroll Road and Devon Street from NC2 to NC5. This is in Ward 9, District 12. Mr. Sims?
Yes, thank you.
Let me ask real quick, is there anyone here in opposition of this appeal? Okay. Yes, sir, it's your floor.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity of the council and for President Bristner. I'd like to, the simple reason is to enhance the use of this property, which has been in existence for about 30 years. And at the present time, it is, if I understand it, it's not available for a convenience store. And that's what it has been in use for, all that period of time. But I wanted to just enhance the use of it to make it more speculative for future investment if that's available to them. So that's my purpose, is to enhance that property value.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Can I interrupt you a second,
Please,
Mr.
yes.
Sims? Mr. Sims contacted me. This is a part of my district that changed with redistricting, and we've talked about it several times. And I know that Mr. Hall, who planned to be here tonight, but couldn't, had talked to Mr. Sims. Mr. Sims also, through no fault of anyone, got a little bit of conflicting information, not from the planning department, but from someone on the zoning commission. So let me just ask Sydney at this point. Sydney, I don't have a problem with what Mr. Sims wants to do, okay? But I know that Neil had recommended to Mr. Sims the possibility of him recommending to me to table tonight so that Mr. Sims, myself, you, and Neil could get together and consider whether we can get accomplished what he wants to get accomplished in NC2 with a minor change to NC2 as opposed to going to NC5. Now, I noticed that the staff recommendation was to deny, and I'm sure that's probably why the Planning and Zoning Commission denied. So can you give me your views? We have no opposition here.
My initial discussions with Mr. Sims, and this has been quite a while ago. I did talk to him about a month ago, but before that, we'd had some discussions. And I think there's some confusion or uncertainty about what opportunities he would like for the property. And so I'd agree with Neil that I think we need to perhaps table this and clarify that and see if he can do it under NC2.
Right.
We did have some discussions. It may have been purely speculating, just kind of
Yeah.
give and take between myself and Mr. Sims that would have required NC5.
I got you.
But there may have been some adjustment, or that was just kind of floating an idea. So I'd like to have the opportunity to meet with him and see what designation we can come to that may be more appropriate down that part of Carroll than the
Yeah.
NC5 would be.
Yeah, and I might say, and Sydney, you know this, Mr. Sims knows it, many of my colleagues on the east probably know it, I know the chairman's aware of it. That side of Carroll Road has mixed use. And on some of it is neighborhood commercial, and this would stay neighborhood commercial. But, Mr. Sims, I'm gonna make a motion to table, because I think that
Okay.
we can quickly, hopefully work out an amicable solution, especially there's no opposition.
It's okay.
Okay?
That's fine with me. I appreciate it. Appreciate the consideration there.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay,
I'll
you
make a
welcome.
motion to table, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Mr. Smith. Vote with
Thank
your
you,
lights on
Counsel.
the table, please. Thank you, Mr. Sims.
Thank you, Counsel.
Mr. Smith? Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, moving on to ordinances for adoption. Ordinance calendar number 4710AA. Ordinance to amend the Parish Unified Development Code, sign regulations to add community bulletin board signs. This is, let's see, was approved by the commission on February 7th. I need a motion.
So moved.
Motion, second by Mr. Artigue. Okay, yes, sir.
Carlo Hernandez. I live in a subdivision with 433 home sites. It is approximately 15 years old. It has one entrance and one bulletin board. The bulletin board size is 2 feet by 3 feet, a total of 6 square feet, including the border area. Our subdivision contacts its residents by way of email. We also have a website, as many subdivisions do. 40 square feet for a bulletin board, I believe, is far too big. I hope that the council will agree that it needs to be reduced. I would suggest a reduction of half. 20 square feet, I suggest, is more than enough. If Councilmember Belisario is committed to this 40 square feet for that one subdivision, maybe the council will consider adopting it for that one subdivision, 40 square feet, and then for all other subdivisions in unincorporated St. Tammany, a maximum of 20 square feet. I like all the other regulations that he has as part of the proposal, but just simply the size of this, 40 square feet for a bulletin board, I believe, is far too big. I tried to conceive of what would you need 40 square feet to do? And I came up, I went back to the 8th grade, and I was required to memorize the Gettysburg Address 7 years ago, that. It's 10 sentences. You would need just under 40 square feet at 3 inches per letter to put the Gettysburg Address on a bulletin board. So, I mean, the question is, do we need to do that on bulletin boards? And I would suggest that possibly half of that size, 20 square feet, is ample room. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I understand where he's coming from, but it's obvious he's never gone to South Military Road on the eastern side and driven into the Quail Ridge area. There are 6 subdivisions in there. Instead of them each having their own separate homeowners association, they rolled it up and called it under the Old River Road Homeowners Association. There were multiple bulletin boards. They're down to 1. And they're doing an upgrade to it. What they have done is to raise the quality of the sign, so the inside, there will be letters in there with locked plexiglass. And for the residents who want to have signs for garage sales and whatever they want, they have put 2 arms on the side of the community bulletin board, so people can post their garage sales and all the other stuff you want to think about that could be then removed. That's the reason it's the size that it is.
Okay. I want to ask the council members to hold off on their comments. Let's get the public comment, and then we'll close the floor, and then I'll take your comments, okay? Yes, sir.
Richard Walt from Quail Creek Subdivision. I do not remember exactly where all the discussion has led to as far as the amendments to this particular ordinance or the restrictions thereof. But when we were discussing it originally back at the zoning meeting way back when, 2 things that I was concerned about were, number one, an allowance for at least 80 inches high for the bulletin board. That's the bulletin boards that we have. That's where they are right now. I understand there's a possible grandfather clause, and that's fine. However, if someone were to knock it down or if we replace it, the new ordinances could end up with us having something drastically different than what we have now when we go to replace it. So that's a concern that I have there, that we have at least an 80-inch height availability for our bulletin board should we replace it as it is today. Also, we're in the process of moving our monument signs to some of our center medians. One concern was that there may be a 100-foot difference between the bulletin board and the monument sign. I would just like to have that as a blanket 10 feet or 0 feet if there's no other reason to have a restriction there. But that, so regardless of where it is now, that's what we would like to see, just so that we will be in compliance should we replace them as they are today. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Okay, I'm going to close the floor. Mr. Tanner, I believe you had your light on. I'll go to you first, and then Mr. Bellisario, I believe you got your light on. Any other council members over on this side? Mr. Smith, put your light on, so remind me, please. What I'll do is I'll go to Mr. Tanner, Mr. Smith, and then Gene, I'll go to you next after that.
I just had a question. We're talking about 40 feet. That's the maximum. It doesn't have to be that big if the subdivision doesn't want it that big, right?
Right, that's correct.
Mr. Smith?
You haven't been around in a while since these kind of matters have been introduced, but the gentleman mentioned something about making it germane to just that district, and since Military Road by your own admission, Gene, it's a little bit different than most of the subdivisions around the parish. And I've been up and down Quail Creek Boulevard quite a few times. I think you do have, by each one of those subdivisions, a monument sign, if I'm not mistaken, introducing them.
What they did, TJ, on South Military, over 10 years, they built and constructed a brand-new monument sign that went through the Planned Quarter Overlay Review. The community bulletin board is 2,000 feet in Old River Road. It's right before the bridge for the W-15 when it becomes Doubloon Bayou. And one of the things that we didn't want to do when you look at the placement of these, this came from Helen, and she had an excellent idea. You do not want to have a monument sign, then right next to it a fair-sized community bulletin board, because people are going to slow down. And therefore, we came up with 100 feet. This is even better because it's 2,000. This whole thing evolves. They had an old community bulletin board sign that had been there around almost 30 square feet. it was falling apart. They removed the signs to put a new one up and found out because of the change in the UDC, community bulletin boards were not specifically identified. But since it was grandfathered in, we had to do it, then we had to change the ordinance to be able to address this issue.
But, my question is though, can it be, with UDC, Planning Department, germane to just that district? Or is that no longer acceptable?
You can have different regulations for different districts. I think you need and this is more of a legal question, I think you need to establish a rationale for why it is different.
Yeah, Sidney, I think just what Richard Tanner said answers the question, and I was going to do it the same way. It's up to 40 square feet. It's not mandatory at 40 square feet. Another subject can put one in at 12, 16, 20 square feet, and they're cool. And to then, if you make it, and we have to go back to the days of the planned quarter overlays, which drove you nuts, where you started having different PCOs with all these different requirements, and the orders got thicker and thicker and was more difficult to deal with. So if you make this on a global basis, from a few square feet to 40 square feet, you're covered. It's cleaner.
And
Mr. Stefan.
Please don't take my response as encouraging by districts.
I wouldn't want that.
I actually think it weakens the ordinance. That's why I said you have to provide a rationale
Yes.
for why it would be different. In order to strengthen, if you make that decision and it's ever challenged, what is the rationale? Why is South Military Road different than any other subdivision in St. Tammany Parish?
Yes.
Mr. Stefanczyk?
And I think Sidney hit it. We've got something called the Unified Development Code. We need to keep that way for the entire parish. We used to have in this parish, District 6 would have one thing, District 1 would have another one, District 7, District 11, and we had different rules. And if you want to try and talk to code enforcement or somebody and try to figure out what they're doing, when you start going that route, it creates all kinds of problems. I think we need to keep it a unified development code. It's a maximum, as they said, and I think we still have some of those out there, but we need to get rid of them as we go forward. So I'm comfortable. Most of the subdivisions in my area don't have one that big. They're not gonna put one that big, and it's only where it needs to be that big that you'll allow to go to that maximum.
Mr. Smith?
And just as a point of clarification, then this ordinance does read an up to a minimum and a maximum? Does it have that in there, or does it say
No,
up to?
there's no minimum. You're not required to put up a community board.
does
It's
it-
just a maximum.
Just
It's just like
maximum,
any other
just
sign.
maximum.
Just like most of our other sign regulations, it's how large do you allow it to become at the discretion of the neighborhood.
Okay, so long as we're not bound by the 40 square feet.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and the floor is closed. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
We have- yes,
oh,
sir.
oh, I'm sorry.
Mr.
I was
we-
just wondering if we could amend this to have Mr. Hernandez repeat the Gettysburg Address. Mr.
All
Hernandez,
right.
Are you willing? I was
Mr.
trying to help you get to the microphone, Mr.
All right.
Hernandez.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, ordinance calendar number 4732. Ordinance amending official parish zoning map to reclassify .7 acre from A3 to MD1. This is in Ward 3, District 2. Mr. Sharp. Okay,
Why did you skip 2?
I'll go back to it.
You trying to head off my district again?
Yeah. So I have a motion and a second by Mr. Thompson. Vote on your lights on 4732.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, going, ordinance calendar number 4731, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify .607 acre from HC2 to HC2 and a mobile home overlay, Ward 6, District 11, not District 6. Mr. Stefanczyk,
So moved.
second by Mr. Bender. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, ordinance calendar number 4733, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 1.88 acres from A3 to MD1, Ward 3, District 2. Second by Mr. Thompson. Vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, ordinance calendar number 4734, ordinance to amend Ordinance Council Series number 10-2406, 2011-2015 Capital Improvements Budget and Program, and to further identify changes to the capital improvement list for 2011-2015. I need a motion by Mr. Belisario, second by Mr. Smith. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Ordinance calendar number 4735, ordinance to amend the 2012 operating budget, amendment number 1. Need a motion?
So moved.
Second by Mr. Artigue. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Ordinance calendar number 4736, ordinance to amend the 2011 operating budget, amendment number 6. Motion by Mr. Dean,
Second.
second by Mr. Belisario. Vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Ordinance calendar number 4737, ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire certain conservation servitudes from Delta Land Holding Company, LLC, for River Club Conservation Area.
So moved.
Second by Mr. Thompson. Vote with your lights. Where is that?
Huh? Yeah, it's on the Chifuncta.
Oh, okay. It's behind the Chifuncta Country Club area.
Behind Chifuncta Country Club and around the Target Center back toward the river.
Okay.
Mr. Dean, I need your vote. Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Ordinance calendar number 4738, ordinance to amend the Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 3, alcoholic beverages, to amend residency restrictions in accordance with Louisiana Revised Statute Title Number 26, Section 80. We need to amend and adopt. Kelly, Ms. Rabelais, can you explain to us what?
Right.
We're going to make our alcohol permitting ordinance consistent with state law. There was a change with regards to requiring citizenship of members and managers of public entities, and so we're going to make our ordinance consistent so that we don't preclude those individuals.
So that's the amendment.
I'm sorry, that was the original ordinance. The amendment is just to make it consistent across the wards because there was a difference, and Mr. Hall had requested the amendment.
Okay, so I need a motion to amend. Second by Mr. Tanner. Vote with your lights on the amendment, please. That was language clarification, my understanding.
Yes, sir, it was.
Okay.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Now motion to adopt, Mr. Stefanczyk, second by Mr. Tanner. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 4739, ordinance to amend ordinances, Council Series number 11-2645, adopted December 1st, 2011, which established and validated rates and fees for sewage and water services provided by systems owned and operated by the parish. I need a motion. Stefanczyk, second by Mr. Groby. Vote with your lights, please.
Wait, can I?
Oh, okay.
I was going to start off with 4 score, but maybe not.
That wouldn't be germane.
If, when this was adopted in December, there were 2 amendments that were, I thought, germane to the discussion. One was the 4% which is reflected in it's the last page here, in index increases. The other was the fact that it was only going to be applicable every other year, biannually, it said. But that amendment never got incorporated. And I'm wondering what happened. Did I misunderstand that?
Mr. Gordon?
No, it was never discussed to be biannual. It was the indexed increases would take effect every year. What we discussed was that when we did the budget hearings, we'd always inform the council of what those changes would be, and the council could, obviously at that time, look at it and discuss it. And that was what was discussed.
Well, if you read the minutes that are in the, on the website for this particular ordinance, it says that Mr. Gordon stated that it would be every 2 years and that it would be 4%. Yet when the motion was made, which I thought was a generic motion, but it read the 4% was the only thing identified in the motion, then that was adopted, and apparently the 4% is what stuck and not the biannual, which clearly, I think if you go back and look at the tape, I'm positive that that was part of the discussion, and I thought was part of the motion.
I don't remember that. I don't think that I mean, I didn't state that. I don't do the minutes, however. That was never discussed. I think we talked about that. We would, every time the council would come up to the budget hearings, and I think there was a discussion about looking at it after 2 years to see if the indices and the way the indices is calculated was still something we wanted to keep moving ahead with. That was the only discussion that I recall from that.
So I'm the only one that recalls this thing.
Okay, Mr. Chairman?
Sorry.
Mr. Bender?
I just have a question. Mr. Hernandez, did you say it's on our website?
Yes, sir, on the minutes for the
Oh, on the
discussion.
minutes.
Yes, under the minutes. And it says that Mr. Gordon, and if I can pull it up real quick.
But I mean, do we know that maybe there was a typo in the minutes?
Well, I mean, that's always possible, but I think and I didn't go back and look at the actual replay of the thing, but I certainly recall the conversation as being that it would be biannual and that it would be for a maximum of 4%. And that was my clear understanding as to what took place on that.
Mr. Hernandez, I remember it as being annually, but that was going to be capped. That I remember. We had that specific discussion because originally there was no cap at all. And through the discussions and the debates over it, we put the cap in there. I remember that much. But my understanding was that it would be an annual review.
Okay, so obviously it can be, and then we know that it's quite possible that it will be increased up to 4% annually then.
If they can justify it.
If this index, if this index
Council
zero.
approves it, it's not going to be, by definition, it's automatically 4%.
But
That's
it's a
for sure.
calculation that's going to be done every year and during the budget processes.
And that's my understanding, is that it was going to be brought before the council, before the finance committee, to review, and they're going to have to justify any cost increases.
Reading from the minutes, it says Greg Gordon proposes increase having a cap of 4% and can only happen every 2 years. Any increase will not take effect until 2012. So that's what the minutes were. I think it accurately reflects what transpired at the meeting. Apparently, I'm the only one that remembers that, though. Thank you.
We wouldn't have done it that way. It would not have made any
All right,
sense
we have a
to do
motion and a second.
that. Yeah.
Any other discussion?
There's the 2 years prior in here.
Turn your light on, Mr. Belisario.
What may be the problem is, in the indexed increases, there's one sentence that's talking about the rates and the time period. It says, provided, however, the percentage increase shall not exceed 4% without council approval. And it talks about, let me see it, sentence above it, excuse me. It talks about the previous 12 months comprised in October of the prior year, in October 2 years prior. So maybe in the meeting minutes, it got twisted around.
Okay. That, All right, we have Mr. Smith, and then I'm going
Yeah,
to call a
having
vote.
not been available for that particular exercise, Greg, you know, you and I have been having some discussions about several of the water systems in District 14, and the net result, though, of this administrative difference here, would it have any impact that I would be concerned about, that we would be concerned about, not just in District 14, but across the parish? The net impact of biannual versus annual?
Well, something would be increased annually would be different than biannually, yes.
Your increase, your increase over, if you did it every 2 years, would be a much greater increase versus smaller increments on a yearly basis.
And is it absolutely necessary that we pass this tonight?
Well, actually, that's already been passed.
That's
I think
already been
Mr.
passed.
Hernandez was bringing up a discussion item. Actually, tonight, this ordinance gets into some other parts of the rate ordinance that deal with a specific development.
This is all about
Tarabella.
Tarabella, yeah. Basically, what we're doing is cleaning up some contractual agreements that went on during the negotiation period with Tarabella and when we purchased Southeastern Utilities. So I have a motion and I have a second. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Ordinance calendar number 4740, ordinance to correct the road and drainage inventory, wards 1, 3, and 8, districts 3 and 9. Need a motion? Second by Mr. Artigue. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
All right, ordinance to extend for 6 months the moratorium of Highland Park subdivision, District 12.
So moved.
Second by Mr. Stefanczyk. Vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Ordinance to extend, Council Series Number 4742, ordinance to extend for 6 months the moratorium in Beverly Hills and Kings Point subdivisions, Ward 8, District 14. Mr. Smith. Second by Mrs. O'Brien. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Ordinance calendar number 4743, ordinance to amend St. Tammany Parish Code of Ordinances, subdivision regulatory ordinance 499 regarding rear access to lots. Need a motion?
So moved.
Second by Mr. Stefanczyk. Vote with your lights, please.
Mr. Bellisario? That's all right. Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
All right, ordinance calendar number 4744, ordinance amending and reenacting the contiguous lot rule regarding minimum building site within Dub Park subdivision. Someone needs to make a motion for this, please. Mr. Falconer, second by Mr. Dean. All right, vote with your lights, please. And that will allow me to remove that moratorium next month.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
All right, ordinance calendar number 4745, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 6.171 acres located at the northwest corner of US Highway 190 and Dixie Ranch Road from A2 to A2 and HC2. And this is Ward 9, District 11. Mr. Stefanczyk. Motion, second by Mr. Smith. Vote with your lights on that, please.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
All right, under nominations, there's a resolution to appoint 4 members to the Board of Commissioners of St. Tammany Parish Recreation District Number 16. I believe, Mr. Smith, you have some names?
I think the names have already been submitted, from my understanding, and with great reservations, I'll go ahead and move on this because I understand that they want to do this for the purpose of setting a meeting so that they can kind of move forward and come up with some plans. So we'll move on that.
TJ, who are the people?
I thought they were already submitted. Is that not right, Mike?
No, we have 3 names.
We have 3 people that are on there already.
They're on there now, but it's
Right.
not a committee yet because they only have 3 of 7.
That's right. The council has 6 appointments.
You have made three
Three.
already.
Okay, so we,
So this
There's
is
still
three
a need
more.
for three more.
We
we
need
got
to come
table
up
it
with
then.
3 more than table.
All right, so it's
Move to table.
Move to table, well, yeah, move to table, second by Mr. Stefanski. Vote with your lights on the table, please.
I didn't think we had it.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, resolution to appoint one member to replace Peter Link on the Finance Authority of St. Tammany Parish. Mr. Stefanski?
Yes, I would like to appoint, this board to appoint Matt Faust. Matt Faust is a councilman with the city of Covington. He was on the Finance Authority when they had one between Covington and Slidell. And he has both the banking experience and the mortgage side experience to sit on this board, so.
So we
I
have a
think would
motion
be
to
an
appoint
excellent-
Matt Faust, second by Mr. Bellisario.
He's former councilman.
Any other discussion?
Since this has laid over for several months, I
Right,
would
so
make it.
that's right, the motion and
This thing
second,
needs to be
so it
done.
lays over.
No, this
But you-
thing
you wanna-
should be,
What's the resolution?
this thing should be appointed tonight. We've had this open for 4 months.
Okay, so we suspend the rules and adopt then. So the motion is to suspend the rules and adopt.
Thank you.
Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, under appointments, resolution to appoint.
Mr. Chairman, could I
Yes,
just
ma'am.
introduce my appointments, please?
Yeah, if you want to do it now, go
Yes,
ahead.
please. I have sent letters to all of the appointments from the parish president's office that were up, but there are a few people in the audience tonight that I want to introduce, particularly Fire District Number 1 in Slidell. Troy Brackett is here. He is my new appointment, and I'm very happy to have him there. Thank you, Troy, for agreeing to do that. We appreciate it. Also, my Planning and Zoning Commission appointments, Todd Richard and Dave Manella. Todd is from Mandeville, and Dave is from Slidell. Thank you guys very much for being here. And I want to say also, we got so many resumes from so many people when we sent word out that we wanted more people involved in our boards and commissions. And we got just wonderful people, as you can see from the ones here tonight. So we appreciate it very much.
You did explain to them.
I told them that it's a joy and a privilege.
Welcome aboard. Anybody else, Pat? They're not here tonight, okay. All right, under appointments, resolution to appoint William Hathaway, Dr. Peter Giron, Anthony Alfred, and Eugene Garcia to the St. Tammany Parish Mosquito Abatement District Number 2. Mr. Stefanski? And second by?
Yes, I nominated them last week, so I moved to appoint.
And second by Mr. Artigue. Vote with your lights, please, on those nominations.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, resolution to reappoint members to the St. Tammany Parish Board of Zoning Adjustments. Do we have any nominations? Do we have any names?
Yes, I have one, Jesse Perry. He had sent in information, and I believe Teresa has that, and so he's the nominee. Jesse Perry is sitting over here alongside the wall.
See him over there?
Yeah. These are parish-wide, so with these nominations, I think we're going to have to move to suspend the rules and adopt, since we don't have a quorum for the Board of Adjustments. Ms. O'Brien?
We also wanted to nominate William Ballantyne.
William Valentine?
Ballantyne,
Okay. Ballantyne, with a B.
with a B.
Okay.
Tom.
Mr. Stefanski?
Tom?
William Tom Ballantyne.
No, I don't have anybody to nominate, but we're reappointing the whole board somewhere tonight, right?
Well, some of them will get, I believe we've got a number of resignations. Sydney, do you know who's resigned off of that board?
Well, if not, the other ones need to be reappointed, or they're going to serve until they are replaced, one of the two.
Mr. Gould,
Yes, sir.
I may be able to assist. Mr. Sanchez, I know, who's a council appointee, has resigned, as has, I believe, Mr. Ratcliffe, which is Mrs. Brister's appointee.
and there was one other individual who has resigned, that is a council appointee. I don't recall the name at the current.
Well, why don't we put these two people on, because they did not have a quorum at the last meeting because of the resignations. And there have been a couple of critical situations come up that have not been resolved because of this. Steve?
Their quorum is 4 out of 5, by the way.
Right.
So you understand, they have to have 80% of their board there for them to hold a meeting.
Here's what we have for council appointees. You got Tim Fandle, who I know wants to stay. Alton Sanchez, I believe you indicated that Mr. Sanchez has resigned.
Correct.
You got Louis Buchter.
And he has resigned.
And he has resigned. And then Brian Schneider.
I beg your pardon. Mr. Bruchter and Mr. Schneider and Mr. Fandle do wish to remain. There's one permanent member, council appointee, that has resigned, and that's Mr. Sanchez, and one alternate who has resigned. So actually, the council.
Who's the alternate?
That has resigned.
Mr. Schaefer?
Right, Bob Schaefer. Well, I think Bob Schaefer has expressed an interest in not serving any long, but Luke Spaguzza has also expressed a desire to resign. So really, the council's most pressing need is to appoint one new permanent member and one new alternate member in order to assure that the board has enough members to take action.
To function.
Correct, because it's a
Okay.
unique board because they require 4 out of 5 in order to take formal action on a matter, and that's why we have 2 alternates, so that if there is a vacancy, it can be filled.
All right, so we have two names. How would you like to split this?
Let's just get some paper and let's vote. Who gets the most votes gets the council appointee, the other one becomes the alternate.
All right, well,
Easiest way.
let's.
Can we have the names again?
Yes, Jesse Perry and William Tom Ballantyne.
Mike, how are we going to do this?
Well, with 2 nominees, the easiest way would be to vote on each one individually using your machines, and then those votes can be recorded. In other words, the council members who are voting for Mr. Perry would press yes, and those that don't wish to vote for Mr. Perry as, say, a permanent member, don't vote at all. And then the council members who wish to vote for Mr. Ballantyne, that would occur on the second vote, would press yes. In the alternative, we can move on to another matter and come back to this item, and I will scurry to the back and draw something up that y'all can write on.
We could vote.
Excuse me,
Mr. Bender.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Chairman.
That's
Go ahead.
okay.
No, what I was going to ask is could we have the 2 council members who've nominated these people just tell us a little bit about them? I mean, if we're going to vote tonight.
Okay.
Sure. In the meantime, can we have Mr. Savant go draw up a ballot?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. There's a resume passed out that Teresa was to send to everybody. I've known Jesse for about 25 years. He's worked with WSTE, the electric co-op on Gauze Boulevard. He retired and has come back as a consultant with WSTE. He's got a very variety of work experience plus education. He's now back as a consultant with WSTE, and if he wants to come to the mic and also speak on his own behalf, it'd be okay. He has shown me he actually applied for the P&Z Commission several months ago, and is interested in bringing his time and talents to one of our boards and commissions. So this is his second request.
Ms. O'Brien?
I'm going to be honest, I don't know Mr. Ballantyne all that well. He's a very impressive gentleman who serves on a variety of different boards, very well educated. Mr. Falconer is very familiar with Mr. Ballantyne, so I'd like to ask him to tell us a little bit more about him since he knows him so much better.
Sure. Thank you, Maureen. It's my pleasure to talk about Tom Ballantyne. Tom is, I've known him for 30 years. He's a graduate of the United States Naval Academy. I think he has a master's degree from perhaps one of the Ivy League schools. After finishing his career in the Navy, he ran, oh boy, I'll think about it probably when I finish talking here, the Fortune 500 company. He presently is an active volunteer with Habitat for Humanity. He's been the chairman of the administrative board of St. Timothy on the North Shore United Methodist Church in Mandeville. I think he's absolutely worthy, well qualified, and he should be properly vouched for in this forum.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Now, we're going to be replacing Mr. Sanchez as a permanent member, and whom are we, Mr. Spaguzza as the alternate will be replaced? Yes. Okay. Let's table this for the moment, and then when we get the ballots, we'll come back, we'll pass them out, everybody can vote, and then I'll announce the way it fell. Okay, so a
Mr.
motion
Chair-
to table by Mr. Stefanzik, second by Mr. Bender. Ms. Brister?
No, after you vote, I'll.
All right, we'll go ahead. Vote with the lights on the table, please. Mrs. Brister?
I had sent a letter to my appointment. I just wanted to go pull it and make sure it had gone out. His name is Greg Gordon. It's not this Greg
I
Gordon.
know the Greg Gordon you're talking
This
about.
Greg Gordon.
Home
So
builder.
it is Gregory Gordon, a retired gentleman whose resume looks great, so, and he has accepted it, so we have
Good.
him on board already.
Well, it sounds like we'll beef this thing up pretty well at this point. So we have a motion and a second on the table. Everybody voted with their lights. Need the results?
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, let's move on. Resolution to reappoint Rosalie Boudreau to the St. Tammany Parish Fire Protection District Number 2. Mr. Falconer?
So moved.
Second by Mr. Thompson. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, resolution to reappoint Alvin Roussel Jr. to the St. Tammany Parish Fire Protection District Number 5. Mr. Thompson? Second by Mr. Dean. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, resolution to appoint John Gardner and John Burden to the St. Tammany Parish Sewer District Number 1. Mr. Falconer?
If there was ever an opportunity, Ms. President, to say thanks to folks for volunteering for tough duty, this is one. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Mr. Thompson. Vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, resolution to reappoint Lloyd Olstendorf, Steve Dwyer, Paul Melanson, David Pittman, and Chuck Daniels to appoint Jay Delahousie to the St. Tammany Parish Rec District Number 14. Mr. Dean? Second by Mr. Thompson. Vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, we'll keep on. Discussion and other matters, motion to refer to the zoning commission for recommendation to propose rezoning of a parcel of land, section 33, township 8 south, range 14 east, bearing the physical address of 36237 Donis Drive, currently zoned A3 to A3 with the mobile home overlay. It's Ward 9, District 14. Mr. Smith?
Move to refer.
Second. Vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
All right, next one is a motion to refer to the zoning commission to consider changing permitted uses in MD1 and MD2. Need a motion by Mr. Bender, second by Mr. Belisario. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
All right, motion to refer to the zoning commission to consider setting the maximum building height to 70 feet in zoning classifications MD3 and MD4. Need a motion, Mr. Bender, second by Mr. Smith. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
All right, motion to refer to the zoning commission to consider setting maximum building height to 70 feet in zoning classifications PBC 1. Motion by Mr. Stefanski, second by Mr. Bender. Vote with your lights, please. All right, last motion.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Sorry. Last motion is to refer the zoning commission for recommendation to propose rezoning of 15.14 acres land on Lone Oak Drive in Section 14, Township 8 South, Range 14, from its current zoning A4A to A4A with a mobile home overlay. This is in Ward 8, District 14. Mr. Smith?
Move to refer to the Zone Commission.
And second by Mr. Bellisario. Vote with your lights on that.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
All right, moving on to items off the floor. I need a motion to open the floor. Second by Mr. Groby. Now, this needs to be unanimous vote. Vote with your lights.
Unanimous with 1 absent.
All right, for introduction only, ordinance to amend the 2012 operating budget amendment number 3. And second by Mr. Stefanski. Okay, the next one is same thing, ordinance accepting an act of dedication and donation for the future improvement of the extension of Max Jude Lane, Ward 4, District 5. Motion by Stefanski, second by Mr. Bellisario. No other action needed. Ordinance, next one, going to be the same thing. Ordinance to amend Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 7, Drainage and Flood Control, use of fill materials prohibited. Mr. Artigue, and second by, was that Mr. Bender? No other action. Resolution, number 4, resolution to appoint 4 members to the Board of Commissioners of the St. Tammany Parish Drainage District number 5. Mr. Bender?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was a typo. It is 4. I just want to read the 4 names, and then I'll give this to Ms. Dina, and we'll enter it into the record with their addresses and phone numbers. This is the Drainage District number 5, Mr. Sid Abear, Mr. Frank Van Drell, Mr. Bob Blanchard, and Mr. Wes Walsifer. And I'd like to make a motion to nominate and motion to pass this tonight.
Second by Mr. Bellisario. Vote with your lights on the nominations.
Thank you.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to thank those people for stepping forward to serve.
Your motion was to nominate and appoint.
And appoint.
That's correct. I wanted to verify that.
Mr. Smith?
He's in Washington.
TJ. That's on those appointments.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
All right, resolution to appoint Larry Delger to replace Tiger Tasso. His term expired to the Board of Commissioners, St. Tammany Parish Fire Protection District number 12. Moved by Mr. Sharp, second by Mr. Thompson. Vote with your lights on the appointment.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
All right, resolution authorizing the parish to prepare and submit a pre-application to the statewide flood control program for assistance for implementation of drainage improvements to Covington Country Club Estates and Riverwood Subdivision. Mr. Falconer?
So moved.
Second by Mr. Thompson. All right, vote with your lights on the resolution, please.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
All right, I know we have at least one item to come off the floor verbally. Mr. Dean, do you have anything? Mr. Sharp, Mr. Thompson? Mr. Falconer, I know you have one that we worked on today. You want to read it?
I'd like to offer a motion to refer to the Planning Commission the issue of amending the parish's billboard regulations to restrict the placement of same to certain geographic areas.
Okay. We'll get back to you. I want to check. Mr. Tanner, do you have anything? Mr. Grovey? Mr. Bellisario? Ms. O'Brien? Mr. Stefanski, you have something?
No, I don't, but each one of these items has to be voted on
That's
separately.
right. I'm going to go back to them, and we're going to vote on that. Mr. Bender, Mr. Artigue, Mr. Smith. Okay, going back to Mr. Falconer's motion, we have to vote to consider it first, and it needs to be, if I'm not mistaken, unanimous. Vote with your lights to consider. He read it. Oh, the second was Mr. Tanner. All right. Vote with your lights on the consideration.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, now vote, the motion is to refer that item to the Planning Commission.
Correct.
And second by Mr. Tanner again. Vote with your lights on referral.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, we're waiting on Mr.
Mr. Chairman,
Stefanczyk. Yes, sir.
the next council administrator could we get him to scurry a little faster? Because I couldn't wait to see Mike Savant scurry.
Well,
And if this
Mike-
is his scurry, and then we
Mike,
end up
you
mess.
did call him Councilman Savant a few days ago.
I wondered what Mike looked like scurrying. I guess this is it.
Why don't we move for a recess? Oh, nope, never mind, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. All right, he scurries back.
Speedy is here.
Can we have one of the ladies count? All right. Now, I assume you mark your district and then you circle the name you want for the appointment to the board as a full member, and then the other person will be the alternate. Is that correct, the way you have this set up?
That's
Mr.
correct.
Savant.
The corresponding district numbers across the top, if you know your district number, then you would mark below that either a check under
What's yours?
one nominee or the other. And, no, that's me. So all you would need to do is check on one of those names. And the one with the largest number of checks would be the permanent nominee, and the other would be the alternate.
Well, can you take a circle the name? Is that okay?
No, that's no, that wouldn't be okay, sir. Just,
I circled the 5 and then circled the name.
oh, well, that would be okay. You can do that. If you wish to circle your district number,
Here you go, Dana.
and then the person you wish to appoint as
Marty, don't
the
confuse him.
permanent member, that's okay, too.
Circles and the checks, don't confuse him.
Mr. Chairman?
He's planning.
Mr. Stefanczyk.
For both of these people, I think we need them to understand, whichever one ends up as the alternate, they need to be at all the meetings. I
They're
mean,
going to
that's
have
one
an
of the-
equal workload.
I know, that's one of those places where they need to be there because they're probably going to vote that time anyhow, no matter what. So
Yeah.
I think, we've had, as a good example, we had the concerned citizens of the Lacombe thing, that piece that came up before BZA, and they couldn't do anything on it because it didn't have a quorum, so we need to get the quorums there, so. And that's what these guys are stepping into, just so they know it.
And the results, please. Our new board commissioners over there resigned already?
Well, and also, Mr. Gould, one thing the council may want to consider while I'm counting is whether or not you wish to go ahead at this meeting to reappoint the current members that wish to continue serving, or to address that at the next council
We'll
meeting?
address that at the next council meeting. We want to verify that they are going to continue to serve. Mr. Stefanczyk, do you have the timer on?
And turned it on, but he doesn't count very fast.
Marty, this is not
Well, that's why I
Florida.
wanted Dina to count it.
This is not Florida. We'll get a good vote.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm thinking Ole Miss here. It's like Ole Miss is coming to mind. I don't know. I feel this. It's certainly not LSU. There's no doubt about it.
Okay, the verdict is in. Mr. Valentine will be the permanent member, and the alternate will be Mr. Perry, excuse me. All right, do we have any,
I move we adjourn.
there you go.
I'll second that.